What's going on, guys? David Feldman-Makrias, and we are going to go into mastering Google Analytics 4. So, Google Analytics 4 has been out now for a good amount of time. We've all been forced to use it. It's the main data processor that we're using that's not Universal Analytics anymore. It's a pretty powerful reporting tool, and there's a lot of data insight we can use. What I want to go through today is not necessarily your standard advertising reports, but instead of just under the Reports tab, I'm actually going to go into the Explore tab. And the Explore tab can work like an in-house pivot table for Google Analytics 4 that can give you a lot of different insights that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see in the Acquisition tab. So let me go through the Acquisition tab first, and then we'll get to Explore. Let's do it now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit acquisition, and then I'm going to go to the user acquisition report. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I think it's the most effective report to come in for Google Analytics, just to get a pulse on what kind of different channels are bringing in website activity, so on and so forth. And I'd say it's the most standard default go-to report that any advertiser or any marketing company should use to evaluate performance. So now I'm in here, I'm in user acquisition. My date range, right now it's irrelevant. We don't need to care about the date range as much. But what I am going to change is, instead of default channel grouping, I am going to change this to first user source medium. And what this does is it gives a breakdown of all the different sources of traffic, like where they originated from, and then the medium they use to get to the website in question. So Google, stemming from Google, and then organic. Direct and no medium. Google, but CPC. Omnisend, email. Bing, CPC, so on and so forth. This is a pretty standard report that you all should use if you're interested in advertising or the effectiveness from the advertising campaigns. It starts on the left with new users, all the way to events and conversions, and total revenue if you have all that stuff activated, or depending upon the type of client. Right now, we're looking at an e-commerce example, okay? But that's your acquisition report. But let's say you want to get a little more nitty-gritty and you want to see other types of comparisons. I'm going to walk you through how to utilize the Explore feature. We're going to set up a table that's going to tell us a little bit about the differences between not only the type of traffic and how it's being cataloged, but also the type of conversions that each type of traffic generates, along with the different buckets of how it's categorized. So let's get into it right now. When I hit Explore, I get taken to this Explorations, right? So I can start a new exploration. I can start from a blank canvas. And for today, I'm going to do that. I have some of our other stuff blurred out, so let's do this. All right, so I got a new exploration open. I just went blank canvas, and we'll go through some of this now. I will first start this as test. And what I'm going to show you is, from an advertising perspective, this is pretty relevant. It's how users are being tracked. So we have a couple different ways to do it. Source medium is a very, very, efficient way to group the different categories of traffic, right? So we're going to do that here, but there's actually different buckets and different types of source mediums that GA4 categorizes. So let's go through that right now. What we're going to do is, we have these three guys here. We don't have to worry about the settings, but we got to go through the variables first. We have segments, dimensions, and metrics. Let's go over, we're going to leave segments alone for now, because that's like how to categorize the data. First, we have to define what the data is. So dimensions you could think of as, it's very much like a pivot table. So like how you want to view your data is dimensions, and metrics is like the actual data itself. So let's go through dimensions. And I'm going to go through a few things. I'm going to look up source medium. And notice that there's a lot of different categories when it comes to source medium. We have regular source medium, we have CM360, DV360, SA360. We're going to leave the 360s alone because that's the Google Analytics 360. We're not using that for our purposes, but I am going to bring in source medium, session source medium, and first user source medium all into one. So when I do that, I have to select these boxes, and then I'm going to import. So the reason I want to bring this up first is because when I looked at source medium and started to configure this report, I went, what's the real difference? What am I looking at? What's the real difference? What does this matter? The nice thing is, with all Google Analytics and Google Ads, metrics and properties and things like that, if you hover over them, it's going to give you a little bit of a definition. So source shows where users were before seeing your content, such as search engine or other website, hence Google Organic, Google CPC. The source part is Google. Medium shows how users arrived at your content, such as organic or for unpaid search traffic, and none for direct. This dimension also includes the custom values. So that's why you see Google Organic or Google CPC. They both originate from Google, but they got to your site organically or they got to your site through ads, right? Now, the key difference with this regular source medium is this last part. This dimension also includes the custom values you define for source and medium. That part is a little finicky. Just remember that for right now. It includes some other custom stuff that you can set up. Now, let's go into session source medium. Okay, the source and medium that refer to the user session, this dimension describes where users come from when they start a new session. So anytime a user comes to a website and they start a session, meaning like the page fully loads and they don't just bounce right away, a session starts. This is different from first user source medium dimensions. The session source medium dimension changes each time a user visits your website. So again, if I go onto the site, a session, I leave, I go back onto the site, that technically is 2 sessions, but I'm only 1 user. Let's do that one more time. I come to the site through Google Organic. I have a session. I don't bounce and I scroll. Awesome. I leave the site. Well, next day, 2 days, whatever, I come back. And I come back and I have another session. That's technically 2 sessions, but I'm only 1 user. So that's the real difference between session source medium and first user source medium. And just realize that source medium itself is more of a catch-all bucket that has some more components layered in. So what we're going to do is we're going to show a simple comparison of all 3 of these guys in terms of this e-commerce website for the main 3 conversions. And conversions being purchases, begin checkouts, and add to carts. And we're going to show how they're all different. And that's what this Explore really allows us to do. It tells us and gives us the accessibility to learn how the data is categorized differently and how we can explore it, massage it, and understand where to use what. So let's do that right now. So we have our dimensions in here. So now we're only going to look at conversions. So I'm going to go to my metrics. I'm going to open that up, and then I'm going to look up conversion. Under event, see there's all these different ones, but really I'm looking up conversion. That's going to be under event, which makes sense because a conversion is a designated event. So I'm going to hit that here. I'm going to import, and now that pops under metrics. I'm going to change my date range here to the last 30 because I just like it better than 28 days. And then what I'm going to try and do now is I want to show those 3 purchase conversions. Well, I was trying to mess with filters, but unfortunately, it doesn't let you do that. I tried to pull an event name and tried to do it a different way, but you got to think of it like Google Ads, because Google Ads, you can create segmentations, and that's a better way to do it. So up here, we're going to go to segments because that's going to allow you to see everything of this data, but slice and dice it a bit differently. So I'm going to go to segments. I'm going to create a new segment, and I'm going to create a segment based off of the event. So I will write, first one is going to be purchase. So I got a new condition. I have events here, and I'm going to go all the way to purchase. Awesome. So now I got purchase. And then untitled segment, I think I have to put purchase here, save and apply. So now I have my purchase segment. So what I can do is create another segment, event segment, add new condition based off event, and then I'm going to add to cart. So this will be add to cart. Notice I have some data here. Awesome. And then finally, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be event segment, and we're going to do begin checkout. And then I'm going to label this begin checkout. Boom. Save and apply. So now I got 3 different segmentations. Okay. So now what I can do is I can look at this stuff all together. But what I'm going to do is separate these tabs a little bit. So what I can do is now I'm going to go into my settings, because now that we have some of our variables defined, we need to see how we're going to apply this. To do that, let me minimize my face and put it up here. Just note, like, I'm not covering anything super important. There we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep my visualization as a table. That's usually how I like to start it, because it's easier to conceptualize when it's a table. And then I'm going to go to my rows and notice that the green matches the green. So I know a dimension can go in here. So when I go in here, I can select one of my 3 dimensions. I'm going to select source medium right now. Then when I go down, I also have columns. I'm going to leave columns alone right now because I think it's just too many ways to look at the data. But then when I come to values, I'm going to look at conversions. So this now is starting to populate all the different source mediums here, but notice that it brought in my 3 segments: add to cart, begin checkout, purchase, in the right order, actually. Actually, no. We have to do it that way. Ooh, I wonder if it will update. Let's scratch that. I just reordered the segments in order. So now let's go back to values, conversions, and it put it in the right order. Great. So now I have all my source mediums broken out by 3 conversion types: add to carts, begin checkouts, and purchases. Awesome. But here's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see how this source medium, this session source medium, and first user source medium, like, are they different? Because if they are different, that's going to tell us certain things about the data, and that's going to tell us that we need to look at reports a certain way in order to get an accurate representation of what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call it SM. And that's for source medium, to stand for, okay, this first dimension. And it's even cooler when I can look at comparisons, right? So let's say I want to do a last 30, but I also want to do against last year. The date ranges are always kind of funky. So we're going to do 1st through the 25th. Now it's yellow. 1st through the 25th of this year. And then we're going to go same time last year. 1st through the 25th. Oh, I hate how this does this. Yeah, we'll do the 26th. It's actually better. Okay, let's go back. 1st through the 26th. All right, and we're going to hit apply. So now I can see actual comparisons, which is cool. And I can see percent changes. So Google Ads, for instance, we have this is telling me percent change. We had a 44% increase in add to cart conversions, a 62% increase in begin checkouts, and a almost 31% increase in purchases. In direct, we don't see the same. We see less. We actually have a 26% decrease, a 38% decrease, and a 38% decrease. That change alone might yield that Google Ads is taking up too much direct traffic, so on and so forth. Organic shows roughly the same, 2.5% decrease in add to carts, but we do have a lot more begin checkouts, but less purchases. That's interesting, a lot. 30% more begin checkouts from organic, but 12% less purchases. That's pretty interesting. Bing CPC, usually you would see if your site hasn't changed and your add to cart stay roughly the same, but we have more begin checkouts but less purchases, this tells us something, and this would want to make me explore further, like, where are we coming from in Google Organic? Where are the people going to mostly? And can that checkout process be fine-tuned? Maybe it's different. So that's one insight I can derive there. Also, When I look at Google Ads percent change, I mean, this to me makes sense. We had a lot more add to carts. We had definitely more begin checkouts. I mean, the percentage looks different, but I mean, you're just having a lot more opportunities, and then you had more purchases. This to me makes the most sense. But this organic, this might be something to look at for optimization and improvement. So that can tell you something right there. We need to test our site organically. We need to find out which pages are being, trafficked the most to from Google Organic and which ones have the purchases, and then we can fine tune from there. Now, that wasn't really the point of this, so I'm actually going to take this comparison off. The point was to compare source medium, session source medium, and first user source medium to see if there's a difference. So I'm contemplating that source medium is going to show the most amount of conversions because it's kind of like this catch-all bucket for, source medium, right? Session source medium is going to have the second most amount of conversions, and then first user source medium, if this gets out of my way, is going to show the third most. That is my guess. And it's a pretty good guess because I've looked at some of this stuff before, and I'll explain why if I'm correct. So what I'm going to do to see that is I'm going to go to this guy, and then I'm going to duplicate. So I just duplicated, and now I still show SM, but now I'm going to do session SM to indicate session source medium, and then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to add this row so it actually corresponds. Data fills in, great. Now, finally, I'm going to duplicate one more time to get first user source medium. Finally duplicated, I'm going to rename here. I'll just call it first. And then instead of this, I'm going to add this guy in here. So now I have all three. So my original hypothesis was that our first says I won't have sound. Well, hopefully that's not true. So my original hypothesis rather was that our source medium is going to be our most amount of conversions, followed by our session source medium, followed by our first user source medium. So let's see if that's true. Source medium shows 12,597 add to cart conversions, 4,600 begin checkouts, but let's go by purchases because it's the most important. And honestly, we should probably look at it this way. Oh, that didn't do anything. I thought it would make purchases come over here. It didn't. Whatever. That's okay. So I'm banking on session source medium to have less conversions. So let's see. What? It's almost identical as far as purchases. Begin checkout 4612, 4613. Okay, these two are almost identical, which really means source medium is being categorized as the same as sessions. There is no other custom values added. Okay, I thought there would be because we had configured analytics differently, but these two are basically the same. Okay, but now first user source medium, I'm like 99.998% sure it's going to be less. It's the same. What? Is that for real? Wow. I'm wrong. Wait a minute. I'm not wrong. I'm not looking at this right. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. The total amount of conversions is going to stay the same. My bad. Let's look at the individual buckets. Google Ads shows 1,000 purchases. Okay. Now, in session source medium, Google Ads shows 955 purchases. And then in first user, Google Ads shows 920. Okay, my first hypothesis was right. The normal source medium has all these other groups, so I wouldn't actually use this one as much. I would use these two and really first user because we care about driving users to the site rather than, sessions, because if a user's engaged, that's what matters. So, and if we can if it's almost like the concept, if you can bench 500 pounds and you can bench 300 pounds. So that's why it's like this is the harder one to get traffic to. That's why I'm going to look at first source medium regardless. But notice that all my conversion values change as I go across each one of these tabs, right? And it does make sense. But I think it's important to note this because not all source mediums are created equal. Some are different. Um, but, you know, this pretty much proves that point. Do you have to have this report on there? Not really. This is just to show that not all source mediums are created equal. With this, I'd probably only use first user source medium at this point because that's the one that we want to make sure we get a lot of. And if we could pump up the conversions on the first user source medium or get more users to the site to actually purchase, then that's the idea. So this was a little lesson on how to manipulate Google Analytics 4 as far as setting up like the internal pivot tables using Explore feature. There's a lot of ways we can slice and dice and cut the data. There's way more ways than I can even imagine, probably. But yeah, one thing to note too, ending note, is this comparison date range. You might have something where you can't go that far back and look at all this data. You do have to set that up in the GA4 property that you can look back at least. I think it's 14 months is the cap. You do have to go into the admin attribution settings and manually adjust it if you're looking to compare data that far. It's not retroactive either. I'm sure there's tutorials on how to do that, but just to let you know. So that's a way to use the Explore path in GA4. That's one way. We looked at conversion settings. We looked at a bunch of different things. And we'll have more to come with mastering Google Analytics 4 and how you can get the exact type of information that matters. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. If this helped you out at all, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out.